Hi, I'm Julia Watts, representing Sentimentally Yours today, and I'm going to show you some techniques with the new Ombre blending paste, which is from a new collection from Film Arting called Flawless Media. So he's launched 3 sets of ombre blending paste, which I've got in front of me here. So we've got a selection of purples, a selection of pinks and a selection of blues, and these are a pearlescent paste. I'll just take the lid off one of them so I can show you. So you can see they're a lovely pearly paste with quite a smooth consistency, and they've been developed to dry reasonably flat, so then you can layer other layers of colour on top if you want to. So what he's done is he's developed some layering stencils to go with them, and I'll just show you those. There are 3 sets at the moment. So we've got the circles. In each set there's 3 sets, or 3 stencils, and you can hopefully see that they graduate down into the smallest one, and that gives you an idea of what we're going to do with the paste. We're going to kind of layer up different colours with the different stencils. So there's your circles. Then we've also got your stars. Slightly harder to see the layers with those, but you can see we've got 2 different sizes like with the circles, and we're graduating down into the smallest one. Then we've got the other one is the diamonds. This is my favourite. I shouldn't have a favourite, but I have. So again, you can see this graduates down beautifully. Well, of course, you don't have to use them like that. You can offset them, but obviously that's how they were originally intended to do. And they are 8 by 8s. So they're good size. You don't have to do the whole 8 by 8. You can just select a section in the middle if you want to, or just a strip. You can use them in lots and lots of different ways. So obviously, what can you do with them? I suggest that if you purchase these, that you actually pop them onto acetate and have a play with the patterns, because there's in excess, across the 3 different selection of stencils, there's in excess of 40 different designs that you can come up with when you do your patterns. You can just use 1 layer. Obviously you can use them with other mediums besides the paste, with your inks, with your misters, with your embossing powders, lots and lots of different things. But I'll just show you some kind of ideas. This is using the pink set. So I've got the darkest pink on the bottom. Ignore the little bit of glitter I've got there, which I shouldn't really draw your attention to, but I have. So obviously the next layer would be your middle layer, and we can just pop that on the top, and you can see how that was intended to be. Obviously you don't have to have them like that. You could offset it and actually put the corners in like that, and you get a totally different look. You could move them down to the bottom, and then you've got another look entirely. You could move it into the middle, and then you've got again another pattern. So hopefully you're thinking there, oh, I can see lots of different patterns going on there. Like I say, the acetate's a really good thing to use. So we just move it back to how it was intended, and we'll bring in our smallest layer. Drying time depends on the size of the hole of the stencil. Obviously, the smaller the hole, the quicker the drying time. And so if we just pop that one on top, that's how they were intended to be, you know, with your different layers. Obviously, I've got the darkest on with the largest layer up to the lightest. You could do it the other way around, do different colours from different sets. But again, if we move this bottom one, sorry, this middle one over to the side, we can then bring in this one and put that to the side there, and we've got a different pattern entirely. Move the middle one down to the bottom. We could have that one at the top instead, or we could move it down to the bottom. We could move it to the side. We could have it in the middle. We can have that one in the middle. Lots and lots and lots of different combinations of patterns to play with. Okay, so we're going to make a card. Obviously I can't do a card with all the different layers of paste because they need to dry, but what we're going to do is use different mediums with 1 stencil. I'm starting with a piece of paper from Phil's Essentials paper pack. This is from the Bluebell and Sage pack. and I've just trimmed it down a little bit, and I'm going to use my diamonds. Now I would suggest that if you're going to stack your stencil designs up and do more than one layer, that you actually just mark on the edge of your stencil where your design's going to be, and that makes it easier for you to line it up, especially if you're using Distress Oxide as your bottom layer, especially some of the lighter colours, because it's obviously you've got to see through the mylar, which is what the stencil's made of. If it's a light colour, it's quite hard to see. And use some stencil tape. This is the indigo blue stencil tape, which is really good because it doesn't tear your card. And I'm going to go for Distress Oxide for my first layer, so I'm not worried about my top layer because I'm not really using, I'm not going to secure that, I'm not using a wet medium as such. So I'm going for Dusty Concord, which is just a really nice purple. You can use your sponges or your applicators. We're just getting a different tone of purple on top of the paper. These stencils are great as well. You can use, this is a nice, because this is not such a nice wide open pattern, you can actually use your stamps, your background stamps, and stamp through your stencil. And obviously it's only going to pick up the design on the inside of the stencil, and you're going to, you know, broken designs because of the stencil, the mylar actually lying there, so you're going to get a really cool background going on. You can use your misters with it, so that could be your bottom layer. Not too worried about it being perfect, just getting some colour on. And this could be the only layer you do, of course, you don't have to do all three. Peel the tape away. Then we've got our first layer. See that? So that in itself is really pretty. It's changed the look of that background paper completely. So this is also a very good thing to do if there's a background paper that you don't like. You know, when you buy your packs of background papers and there's always one in that pack that you don't like. So popping a stencil on the top is going to change it, and it's, you know, it's going to make it really cool. We need to make sure that this is dry because we're going to put embossing powder on top of this layer. So I'm just going to give it a quick blast in my heat tool. Distress Oxide does have a, just like this regular Distress ink, it has an open time of about 10 minutes. So if you wanted to, you could pop your clear embossing powder on the top of that. And that again would be another look. But because we're going to put embossing powder on top of it, we're not going to do that. So if you're thinking about, you know, layering up, say, embossing powders in this sort of a technique, remember that if you put embossing powder on the bottom and then you want to put an embossing powder on your next layer, your original layer is going to melt again. So it's not going to be such a defined diamond, but it's another technique. I'm going to dust it, because we're adding embossing powder, I'm going to dust it with an anti-static bag. This is one from Sentimentally Yours. All Phil's products should be available in the brand shop. Good old wipe. And then we're going to take the medium stencil and we're going to pop that into my guidelines there, so I know exactly where I'm going, and then secure it down with some more tape. And the mat I'm using is one of Phil's mats. This is the Teflon coated non-slip mat. It's really good because it doesn't go anywhere. You know, it's not taped down or anything. It's a really good mat and it does wipe perfectly clean. And I've got, this is from Ranger. It's basically perfect medium in a little tub, which makes it easy for me to use. Yeah. You could just use an ink pad. And we're going to just go through the stencil. You know, you don't have to do the whole thing if you don't want to. You could just do like a row of diamonds and then miss a row. I'm going to just put Phil Martin Sentimentally Yours pure silver embossing powder on top. You could do a graduated design, so you could put more than one colour on, or you could mix it and, you know, sprinkle different colour of powders here, there and everywhere. Don't know whether I've done it all, we just think that we have. Again, remove my tape. Now do be careful when you do this, 'cause one of the things I tend to do is have it jump, and then what happens is if you've got any of the ink, embossing ink underneath the stencil, then that's going to mean that your design's going to kind of shift and you're going to have a little bit of contamination, if you like. Can't really see that yet, but we'll pop our powder on and see how I've done. As I say, we're going to go for the pure silver from Sentimentally Yours. You could, there is a baked aubergine, which is one of Phil's powders as well, but I just want more of a definition, which is why I'm going for the silver. Pop a little bit in there. If you don't use much, it all goes back in the pot. I've done all right on that one, actually. Do pop your embossing powders back in the pot, because Phil's powders have actually got, the pots are actually anti-static, so the powder will keep its anti-stability, or whatever the word might be, if you put it back in the pot. If you put it into another tub, then it's not going to keep that anti-static. So we're going to heat set this. There's obviously various different thoughts as to whether to heat from underneath or on top. I tend to always go from on top. There's really no right or wrong. You do whatever suits you. I tend to scorch it if I go from underneath. I know that Phil likes to heat emboss from underneath rather than on top most of the time, because it gives a smoother finish. Whatever you're most comfortable with is what's right. So you can see here we've got our powder going on for our background. Like I said, I've got a little bit of movement. Obviously I must have moved the stencil a little tiny bit, but we've still got all those diamonds going on. Of course, this is now a resist, so if you wanted to, you could kind of stamp around it, or do a little bit more inking. You could bring in some of the other patterns if you wanted to. Perhaps put some dots in between the diamonds. Turn that round and do the other side. And although this is too big for what I'm going to make the card out of, so you keep all the extra little bits, and if you cut your diamonds out, you can actually make a little flower out of that, pop a little leaf die underneath it, add a sentiment, and you've got another card. There we go, that's the last one. So there's where we're at so far. So there's 2 layers. Now we're going to do the 3rd layer. So we're going to add your smallest diamond stencil and some more tape. Well, I'll put it down somewhere. There it is. And now we're going to add our paste layer. You could, like we say, we could do all 3 layers in paste, because I want to show you all 3 at one go. This is the easiest way for me to do it. And this time I'm going to actually secure it at the top, because I'm going to use paste as well. I'm going to secure it at the top. Okay, we'll use, we're on purple, so I think we'll use the darkest purple, and the darkest purple is the Grape Pearl. See, that got that lovely Flawless Media logo on there. Oh, my lid's all stuck. There we go. And I find it easier myself to just put a little bit at the top. Actually, this is the whole small hole stencil, so you could just use your spatulas to spread it, but I'm going to use a tool to spread it. Phil is developing his own tool to do this. which will be wide enough for the stencil. So watch this space. I'm going to just drag it down. Don't worry about doing all of it. Just get what you can, because we're not doing a full 8 by 8. Okay, and then most of it's going back in the pot. You see, I've not used very much at all. And it is water based, so I'm just going to drop this into some water and it will clean off nicely. I'll clean up on this. And then remove the stencil. You can do a Leone and wipe your extra bits off onto card, which is quite a nice thing to do. But we won't, because I didn't bring an extra card in. So do be careful that you don't move your stencil. So keep a good hold of it as you take each piece of tape off. And then we do the reveal. So peel it back gently. And there we've got the reveal of the diamonds on top, which is rather lovely. But we're going to add to it, because we don't never accept anything just as it is. So we're going to glitter it as well, give it a little bit of bling. I'm going to use some Lavender Meadow Sparkle Dust from Sentimentally Yours, and this is a super fine, super soft holographic glitter. As you can see, it's got kind of a lavender purple base to it. It's just really, really lovely. And sprinkle some of that on. Give it a flick. And then we've got a beautiful sparkly background. It's just yummy, isn't it? Absolutely yummy. Okay, so we're going to use that. I know it's not dry, but we're going to wing it, and we're going to see how we get on and make a card. You will find that although it's got quite a smooth, or it's not a runny consistency, but it's quite a fluid consistency. But you know, I can still kind of hang it upside down there and show you, and it's not moving, so it does stay put, even though it's on top of embossing powder. So that's our background. Right, so I've got a frame. This is a frame that I've cut just out of white card, and it's using the Sentimentally Yours double debossed essential squares. It's quite a mouthful. And these dies have, I'll just take one off. It has a double deboss on the inside of each die, and then on the end is the cutting edge. So it gives you a beautiful, elegant double debossed edge, and then the inside of my frame is plain. So it's really lovely for your mats and layers as well as your frames. So that's what I've used for that. That's going to go on my background in a moment. But I've also got a double debossed flag from the Flags trio, and I'll show you that die set as well. That's this one. I mean, obviously these dies don't come on a magnetic sheet, but you're going to get 3 tags, and then you've got 3 enforcer holds as well. So those are your tags trio. So I've used, which one did I use? I've used the largest one of those. And we're going to stamp our sentiment, and I'm going to do it so it's going to go in my frame that way. So we'll dust again with an anti-static bag. It's just a habit. Even though the powders are anti-static, it's just a good habit to be in. And I'm using Phil's Stately Petite Sentiments. Lovely set of, how many stamps it normally says, I don't know how many it is. Let me look. 17 stamps, there's quite a lot of stamps on there. And as it suggests, they're petite, so they're a little bit smaller than your normal sentiments. And we can see, because they're photopolymer, we can actually see where we want to have it. I like that one, Eat Cake, It's Your Birthday, so I think we're going to have that one. And I'm going to pop it onto my circle acrylic block. Again, this is from Phil. These are great, these blocks. You get a set of 3, and they just fit in your hand, because there's a groove around the edge, and they fit in your hand really, really easily. I like them. I've got a Wow clear embossing ink, which which I'm going to use to ink up. Lots of tapping, and because it's clear we can see through it, see exactly where it's going to go. I'm going to pop it down there, give it a good old press. And I'm going to again emboss it with the pure silver embossing powder. We have got a baked aubergine as well, so that would have been nice, but I want the silver because I've used the silver in my background. See, that's stamped beautifully. Nearly there. It's quite a quick card to do. You could have a background session doing your backgrounds, and while they're all dry, cut all your frames out, then do all your stamping. So you know you can actually make this quite quickly. Right, good to go. There it is. Turn it around so I don't burn my fingers. There we go. Beautiful font, beautiful sentiment, like cake. Right, let's create this card then now. See if I can not stick my fingers in the wet paste. Obviously you would wait for your paste to dry. I've just got some mounting foam on the back. And we're going to choose which area we're going to go over. I think I'll have that area there. Don't throw away all your extra diamonds because you can cut them out and make yourself another card. This is where I get mucky. So I always cut under. Obviously you could do an exact piece, but then you've got, you know, you struggle to touch, you know, to hold the edges that are wet. So I always go for a bigger piece than I need. And cut underneath there. My scissors are getting a bit mucky now. And it doesn't want to stick on the wet paste either. Did I think this through? I don't think so. And I've got some on my fingers. It seemed a good idea at the time, this. Right. One more. Right, clean my scissors. Move that out of the way before I dip my fingers in it. I didn't really put it in the bin. Right, okay, so this is going to go now onto my mats and layers. I'm all right turning that over because it's further up. Oh, I need a bit of glue. Do my glue. There it is. I'm using some of Phil's glue. This is the little 30mm, which is a really handy size. Super quick grab on it. Turn it over. I've got a little bit of a mark there. Okay. And I'm going to try and, I've got the dirty mark here on the left. I've got a lot of dirty marks actually, but we'll pretend they're not there because you won't have wet paste when you do yours. I think it's coming off my fingers. Right. There we go. And then we're going to take our tag, and I've got the little reinforcer. And we're going to just dip into some glue and add on there. And I've got a little bit of baker's twine. So I'm going to front to back for your loop. And I've got a double loop because I quite like the look of a double loop. Through. There we go. Trim it off so it's nice and neat. And a bit of foam tape. bit more. And we'll add a little bit of extra glue because we're going down onto wet stuff and glitter. And let's see, and we just tuck that into the side there. Okay, so we're going to ignore the dirty marks and we're going to think how lovely it is without the dirty marks. So hopefully that's given you some ideas on how to use stencils, how to use the pastes, and just to get your mojo going with different bits of pattern building. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you. Bye.